The cold steel of the operating table is pressed against my back, and the blinding surgical lights are burning into my eyes like the sun itself. I'm Dorothy Washington, 62 years old, and I'm about to give up my kidney to save my daughter Jasmine's life. But right now, with my grandson Terrell's words still ringing in my ears, I know I'm not here to save anyone. I'm here because I've been played. Grandma, I know why Mommy really needs your kidney. Those 8 words from an 8-year-old boy just shattered everything I thought I knew about my family. Let me back up. If you're watching this, hit that like button and subscribe, because this story is going to take you on a ride that'll make you question everyone you trust. I want you to tell me in the comments where you're hearing my story from, because I need to know how far the truth can travel when a family tries to bury it alive. 3 hours ago, I was carrying Jasmine's favorite peach cobbler across the street to her house, the house I helped them buy with my $15,000 retirement savings. I spent $47 on ingredients for that cobbler because I wanted it perfect for what I thought might be my last meal before surgery. I knocked on the door, smiling despite the knot in my stomach. Something about this whole kidney situation never felt right, but I pushed those feelings down. After all, Jasmine was dying. Marcus Williams opened the door, my son-in-law in his pristine white pharmacist coat. Even at home, he wore that thing like armor. His dark eyes swept over me and landed on the cobbler with pure irritation. "Dorothy," he said, not taking the dish from my hands, "we need to talk." "Not thank you. Not hello. Just business. Always business with Marcus." Inside, Jasmine sat on the couch looking skeletal. My beautiful daughter, who used to run marathons, was now this frail shadow. Her kidney disease had stolen 40 pounds in 2 years. "Hi, Mama," she whispered, barely looking up from medical papers scattered around her. "Marcus says we need to go over surgery details." I set the cobbler on their granite countertop, the one paid for with lies, though I didn't know it yet. "Baby, you don't worry about details. Mama's gonna take care of everything. Just like when you had pneumonia at 7. Marcus stepped closer, bringing that chemical smell he always carried. "Actually, Dorothy, there's something about the compatibility testing." He pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. "The doctors want one final blood test tomorrow to ensure the match is perfect." The way he said perfect, like describing a business transaction, made my skin crawl. "But we already know I'm compatible," I said. "Dr. Coleman confirmed it 3 times. Marcus exchanged a look with Jasmine. "Medicine is complicated, Dorothy. We want maximum benefit from your sacrifice." Benefit. Not healing. Benefit. I searched my daughter's face for warmth, but she was staring at those papers, avoiding my eyes. "Jasmine, baby, look at me. Are you scared?" "Because Mama ain't scared. I'd give you both kidneys if I could." When she looked up, tears filled her eyes, but something else too. Guilt. "I know you would, Mama. That's what makes this so." "So what?" Marcus interrupted. "So important we handle everything properly. This surgery isn't just about saving Jasmine's life. It's about securing our future. That requires certain preparations." The pause before preparations made my blood freeze. I'd been a nurse 35 years. I knew medical talk, and this wasn't it. "What preparations?" That's when little Tyrell came running in, mud on his shoes and panic in his eyes. My grandson, Kevin's boy, who called me Detective Grandma because I always figured out neighborhood mysteries. "Grandma Dorothy!" he panted, grabbing my arm. "I heard Uncle Marcus on the phone about your kidney, saying things about tests and money." "Terrell, go to your room," Marcus snapped. "Adults are talking." But Terrell didn't move. He looked up with intelligent eyes that reminded me of his father Kevin and said words that changed everything. "Grandma, I think Uncle Marcus and Mommy Jasmine are lying to you. They're gonna hurt you." Deafening silence. Marcus and Jasmine stared at Tyrell like he'd detonated a bomb. "That's ridiculous," Marcus said, voice too high. "Dorothy, kids say crazy things." But I was watching Tyrell's shaking hands clutch something behind his back. "What do you have there, baby?" Tyrell glanced at Marcus, then Jasmine, then made a choice that saved my life. Uncle Marcus's phone. I found it in the bathroom, still recording a call. "Grandma, they're not trying to save Mommy Jasmine. They're trying to use you." The world stopped. The ticking clock went silent. The refrigerator's hum disappeared. My breathing paused as my 8-year-old grandson's words crashed over me. I took the phone with trembling fingers. The screen showed 47 minutes, 23 seconds. Call still active. I put it to my ear and heard a stranger's voice. Once we have kidney data from the African American subject, we can finalize drug trials. Compensation transfers immediately after surgery. Subject. Not patient. Not Dorothy. Subject. My legs gave out. I sank into a chair, listening to my family's betrayal in real time. Marcus lunged for the phone, but my nurse reflexes kicked in. Dorothy, you don't understand, that's out of context. I stood up, clutching that phone like a lifeline, looking at my daughter who couldn't meet my eyes. Explain what, Jasmine? How you've been faking kidney disease, using your dying mama for money? How you let me spend my savings on fake medical bills? Jasmine's tears told me everything. I looked around that living room at furniture I'd helped buy, at probably fake medical papers, at family photos showing a life built on lies. Then I looked at Terrell, my brave grandson who'd just saved me from the cruelest betrayal imaginable. Thank you, baby. You just saved Grandma's life. I walked to the door, still holding Marcus's phone with its damning evidence, and faced the two people who'd planned to use my love against me. You have no idea what you've unleashed, I said quietly. I'm 62 years old. I've been fighting my whole life, and I've got nothing left to lose. This isn't over. This is just the beginning. As I walked out of my house that I'd paid for, I could hear Marcus yelling, Jasmine crying, their carefully constructed world falling apart. But I only thought one thing. They had no idea who they were messing with. I may be an old woman, but I'm an old woman with nothing left to lose and a phone full of evidence. The war was just beginning, and Dorothy Washington doesn't lose wars. She wins them. I need to take you back 3 years, to when my family still felt like family, and not like a crime scene waiting to happen. My name is Dorothy Washington, and at 62, I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at an old black woman from Atlanta. I'd worked as a nurse for 35 years, raised 2 kids as a single mother, and put both children through college with overtime shifts. I thought I was done with surprises. I was wrong. Our Sunday dinners were everything you'd imagine: my small house on Peachtree Street filled with laughter, cornbread, and collard greens, my 2 children arguing over the last piece of sweet potato pie. Jasmine was 25, working as a fitness instructor, all muscle and energy. She'd run the Peachtree Road Race every 4th of July and could do more push-ups than men half her age. Kevin was my steady one, 32 years old, a private investigator with his own firm. Divorced, raising his son Terrell mostly alone, and the kind of man who brought his mama groceries every Tuesday without being asked. Different as night and day, my kids, but I loved them equally. That was before Marcus Williams walked into our lives. I remember the exact moment Jasmine brought him home. Rainy Thursday in October, and she knocked with this tall, handsome man in an expensive suit. Marcus Williams, 30 years old, pharmacist at Grady Hospital, with a smile that could charm paint off walls. Mama, this is Marcus, Jasmine said, practically glowing. He's the one I've been telling you about. I shook his hand, noting how soft it was, not a callus anywhere. This was a man who'd never worked with his hands like my family had. But he was polite, called me Mrs. Washington, and brought expensive wine I'd never heard of. Your daughter speaks about you constantly, he said, that smooth voice filling my kitchen. She says you're the strongest woman she knows. I liked that. What mother wouldn't? But even then, something felt off. The way he watched Jasmine when she talked, like he was studying her instead of listening. How he asked detailed questions about her health, exercise routine, family medical history. At the time, I thought he was being thorough, a medical professional wanting to know his girlfriend's background. The wedding was beautiful small ceremony at our church, with Marcus's parents flying in from Birmingham, Mr. and Mrs. Williams wore designer clothes to a neighborhood church, complained about the reception food I'd spent my $3,000 savings on, and kept talking about how Marcus was finally settling down with someone appropriate. Appropriate. Like my daughter was a prescription he was filling. But Jasmine was happy, and that's all I cared about. She moved into Marcus's house, the one I'd eventually help finance with my $15,000 retirement money, and for the first year, everything seemed perfect. Too perfect, I realize now. Marcus would bring Jasmine to Sunday dinner every week, always with little bottles of vitamins for her. Iron supplements, he'd say. She's been feeling run down. Or calcium for her bones. You know how hard she works out. Always had a medical explanation, always made sense. Jasmine started changing in small ways. She'd get tired easier during our walks. She'd cancel plans, saying she felt off. Her appetite decreased, and she started losing weight. "It's normal, Mama," she'd say when I worried. "Marcus says my body is adjusting to married life. The vitamins will help." Marcus. Always Marcus with the answers, the explanations, the solutions. Kevin noticed before I did. During one of our Tuesday grocery runs, he pulled me aside in the Kroger parking lot. "Mama, something's not right with Jasmine," he said, loading my car. "She looks sick, and that husband of hers is always hovering, always watching her." "Kevin, don't start trouble," I warned him. "Marcus loves your sister. He's a pharmacist, he knows about health stuff." "That's exactly what worries me," Kevin said. "He knows too much. I should have listened to my son." Kevin had good instincts from years of investigating cheating spouses and insurance fraud, but I was still thinking like a mother, not like the nurse I'd been for 3 decades. The real changes started in year 2. Jasmine began having what Marcus called episodes, times when she'd feel dizzy, nauseous, weak. She'd come to my house looking pale and shaky, and Marcus would follow within minutes, always with some explanation. "Her electrolytes are imbalanced," he'd say, checking her pulse with his expensive watch. "I've adjusted her vitamin regimen." "Maybe she should see a doctor," I suggested once. "I am a doctor, Mrs. Washington. Well, a doctor of pharmacy. I know what I'm doing." That's when he started bringing those unmarked bottles. Little white containers with pills that didn't look like any vitamins I'd ever seen. Some were bright blue, others were red with white spots. When I asked about them, Marcus would rattle off scientific names I couldn't pronounce. "It's a specialized supplement blend," he'd explain, "designed specifically for Jasmine's body chemistry." Jasmine trusted him completely. Why wouldn't she? He was her husband, a medical professional, someone who'd sworn to love and protect her. But I started keeping a mental inventory of those bottles, the way I used to track medications when I worked night shifts at Grady. None of it added up. By the end of year 2, Jasmine had lost 30 pounds. Her skin looked gray, her hair was thinning, and she'd quit her job as a fitness instructor because she didn't have the energy anymore. Marcus had convinced her to apply for disability benefits. Early onset kidney disease, he explained to the family during one terrible Sunday dinner. It runs in some families. Very rare, very serious. I nearly choked on my sweet tea. "Kidney disease? Since when?" "The symptoms have been building for months, Mrs. Washington. I've been monitoring her condition closely. Unfortunately, it's progressing faster than we hoped." Jasmine sat there looking defeated and scared, while her husband discussed her failing organs like he was reading a weather report. That night, after everyone left, I called my old supervisor at Grady, a kidney specialist named Dr. Patricia Coleman. "Patricia, it's Dorothy Washington. I need to ask you about something." "Dorothy, how are you, honey? I heard Jasmine got married." "That's what I'm calling about. Her husband says she has early onset kidney disease in a 27-year-old woman with no family history. Does that sound right to you?" Long pause. "Dorothy, kidney disease that severe in someone that young with no genetic markers. It's extremely unusual." "Has she had a full workup? Biopsy? Complete blood panels from an independent lab?" "I don't know. Marcus handles all her medical care." Another pause. Longer this time. "Dorothy, your daughter should be seeing a nephrologist, a specialist, not relying solely on her husband's assessment." I hung up that phone with ice in my veins. The final piece came from little Tyrell. Kevin's 8-year-old son spent 3 days a week with me after school, and he loved playing detective games. He'd follow me around with a magnifying glass, pretending to solve mysteries. One Tuesday, while Jasmine was napping on my couch after another episode, Tyrell came running into the kitchen. "Grandma Dorothy, I solved the mystery." "What mystery, baby?" "Uncle Marcus's pills." He pulled out a small notebook where he'd been keeping track of things like a real detective. "The blue ones make Aunt Jasmine sleepy. The red ones make her throw up. And the white ones make her have to go to the bathroom a lot." I stared at that little boy's careful handwriting, his innocent observations, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. "Tyrell, honey, where did you see these pills?" "Uncle Marcus keeps them in his car. In a black bag." "There's lots of them, Grandma." "Like a whole pharmacy." That's when I knew. Not suspected, not worried, knew. My daughter wasn't sick. She was being poisoned. But knowing and proving are 2 different things. And Marcus Williams was about to make the biggest mistake of his life. He was going to ask me for my kidney. The morning Marcus Williams asked me to die for his lie was a Tuesday in March, exactly 6 months before I'd end up on that operating table. I was making breakfast scrambled eggs and turkey bacon for Terrell, who'd be over after school. At 8 years old, he was already showing signs of his daddy Kevin's sharp mind, always asking questions, always noticing things adults missed. My doorbell rang at 7:23 a.m. Too early for visitors, too late for emergencies. I opened the door to find Marcus on my porch in his crisp white pharmacist coat, holding a manila folder thick with papers. "Mrs. Washington, we need to discuss Jasmine's treatment options." No good morning, just straight to business, always business with Marcus. I let him in, noting how he walked through my house like he owned it, checking corners, looking at my pill organizer, scanning my medical insurance papers on the coffee table. This wasn't a social visit. This was reconnaissance. "Coffee?" I offered. "No, thank you. This is urgent." He sat at my kitchen table and spread those papers out. Like he was dealing cards. Medical charts. Blood test results. Dialysis schedules. Jasmine's kidney function has dropped to 15%. Without intervention, she has maybe 6 months. The words hit me like a physical blow. I gripped the chair back, feeling 62 years of life experience tell me something was wrong, but 28 years of motherhood demanding I listen. "What kind of intervention?" I managed to ask. Marcus looked up with eyes I can only describe as calculating. "A kidney transplant. From a living donor." "What about the transplant list? Other options?" "Mrs. Washington, the waiting list is 3 to 5 years. Jasmine doesn't have that time." He pulled out a specific sheet, compatibility test results. "I took the liberty of having your blood typed when you donated for her surgery fund last year. My blood ran cold. I remembered that blood drive at their church, how Marcus had insisted I participate for the good of the community. I thought it was charitable. It was a trap. You tested my blood without telling me? Standard procedure for family members. The good news is, you're a perfect match. Better than perfect, actually. Your kidney function tests show you have the organ capacity of someone 20 years younger." He said it like giving me a compliment, not like he'd been secretly testing my organs without consent. "Marcus, I need to think about this. Talk to Jasmine, maybe get a second opinion." "There's no time for second opinions." His voice went sharp, losing that smooth charm he usually wore. "Every day we wait, Jasmine gets weaker. As her mother, I assumed you'd want to save your daughter's life." The guilt trip, the manipulation, making it sound like I was selfish for wanting time to process giving up a vital organ. That's when I made my first real mistake. I agreed to think about it. "Give me a week," I said. "You have 3 days. The surgical team needs time to prepare." 3 days. Like he'd already scheduled my surgery without asking. After Marcus left, I sat staring at those medical papers, trying to make sense of them with my nursing background. The blood work looked legitimate. The kidney function numbers seemed real. But something about the timeline bothered me. How does a perfectly healthy 28-year-old woman go from running marathons to needing a kidney transplant in less than 2 years? I called Kevin. "Daddy's little detective needs to put on his professional hat," I told him. "I need you to investigate Marcus Williams. Everything. His job, his background, his medical credentials." "Mama, what's going on?" "I think your sister's husband is lying about something. Maybe everything." Kevin was at my house within an hour, bringing his laptop and investigator's toolkit. While I made lunch, he worked at my kitchen table, typing and clicking and making those sounds people make when they're discovering disturbing information. "Mama, you need to see this." I looked over his shoulder at a news article dated 8 months ago. Grady Hospital pharmacist suspended pending investigation into drug trial irregularities. The photo showed Marcus Williams being escorted from the hospital by security. "He was fired?" I asked. "Suspended first, then terminated." The article mentions unauthorized testing of experimental kidney medications on vulnerable patient populations. My legs went weak. I had to sit down. "There's more, Mama. I found 3 other women in the past 5 years who filed restraining orders against him. All mentioned him giving them vitamins that made them sick." Kevin turned the laptop screen toward me. 3 different women, all young, all previously healthy, all with medical records showing sudden kidney problems after dating Marcus Williams. "He's done this before," I whispered, "and gotten away with it. None of the women could prove anything. He'd break up with them, they'd get better, they'd move on. But he married Jasmine. Because this time, he found something more valuable than just testing drugs on random women. He found a family with resources, your house, your savings, your insurance, and most importantly, Kevin's voice got deadly quiet. He found a woman with a mother who would give up anything to save her. That afternoon, while Terrell was doing homework, he overheard me on the phone with Dr. Coleman asking about Marcus's suspension from Grady. "Grandma Dorothy," he said after I hung up, "Uncle Marcus isn't really a doctor anymore?" "What do you mean, baby?" "I heard you talking, and I've been watching him, like you taught me to watch for clues. He doesn't act like the doctors on TV." "How so?" Terrell pulled out his little detective notebook, the same one where he'd been tracking the effects of Marcus's pills on Jasmine. "Real doctors ask lots of questions and listen to answers. Uncle Marcus already knows what he wants to hear, and real doctors wash their hands all the time. Uncle Marcus touches Aunt Jasmine's pills and then touches her food without washing." An 8-year-old child had spotted cross-contamination that I, a 35-year nursing veteran, had missed. "Tyrell, I need you to be extra careful around Uncle Marcus from now on. Can you do that for Grandma? Are we still playing detective?" "Yes, baby. But this is a very serious game." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those 3 women, about Marcus's drug trials, about the way he'd looked at me when he said I was a perfect match. Not perfect for Jasmine. Perfect for his experiments. Around 2 a.m., I called my old friend Regina, who'd worked kidney dialysis for 20 years. "Regina, it's Dorothy. I need to ask you something confidential." "Girl, it's 2 a.m. This better be important." "Marcus Williams, the pharmacist who got fired. What was he really doing?" Long pause. "Dorothy, why are you asking about that man?" "He married my daughter, and now he wants me to give her my kidney." "Oh, honey. Oh, no." Regina's voice went from sleepy to wide awake. "Dorothy, that man was running illegal drug trials on kidney patients. Experimental medications that weren't approved for human testing. He was trying to create a treatment protocol he could patent and sell, using desperate people as test subjects. Regina, if someone was taking those drugs, the ones that cause kidney failure, how long would it take to reverse the damage? If caught early, maybe a few weeks. But Dorothy, you cannot let that man anywhere near your kidneys." She didn't have to finish. I knew what she meant. Marcus Williams wasn't trying to save my daughter. He was trying to kill me and study the results. The next morning, I made my decision. I was going to confront him, demand the truth, and put an end to this madness. I had no idea he was already 3 steps ahead of me. When I showed up at their house with my questions and Kevin's evidence, Marcus was ready. He had Jasmine pale and weak on the couch. He had a dialysis machine in their living room, and he had an answer for everything. "Mrs. Washington," he said, barely glancing at Kevin's printouts, "while you've been playing detective, your daughter has been dying. Look at her." I looked at Jasmine, propped up on pillows, breathing shallow, eyes sunken. Whether it was real or induced, she was clearly suffering. "The surgery is scheduled for tomorrow," Marcus continued. "The surgical team is prepared. All we need is your signature." "Tomorrow? But you said 3 days." "Her condition deteriorated overnight. It's now or never." That's when little Tyrell, who'd been quiet in the corner playing with his toy cars, stood up and walked over to Marcus. "Uncle Marcus," he said in his small, clear voice, "why do you have 2 phones?" Marcus froze. "What?" "You have your regular phone, but you also have another one in your car. In the black bag with all the medicine bottles. I saw it yesterday." The room went silent. Marcus's face went pale, then red, then back to pale. "Children have active imaginations," he said quickly. But Tyrell wasn't done. "And why do the medicine bottles in your car have different labels than the ones you give Aunt Jasmine?" That's when I knew my 8-year-old grandson had just cracked the case that grown-ups with college degrees had missed. And that's when Marcus Williams realized his perfect plan had one flaw he'd never accounted for. A little boy who paid attention. The Williams family descended on my house like vultures circling fresh roadkill. It was Thursday morning, 2 days after Marcus had given me his ultimatum about donating my kidney, and I was sitting at my kitchen table when they knocked. Not knocked, pounded. Like they owned the place. I opened the door to find Marcus's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Williams, dressed like they were attending a business meeting. Behind them stood 3 strangers, 2 women and a man, all wearing expensive clothes and judgmental expressions. "Dorothy, Mrs. William said, pushing past me into my living room without being invited. "We need to discuss this kidney situation. Not how are you? Not we're sorry Jasmine is sick. Just straight to my organs." "Who are these people?" I asked. "Family friends," Mr. Williams said curtly. "People who understand family obligations." The word obligations hit me like a slap. Not requests. Obligations. One of the women, thin with sharp features and diamond earrings that cost more than my monthly pension, spoke up. "Mrs. Washington, I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell. I specialize in family crisis intervention." "I didn't ask for any intervention," I said. "Sometimes families need guidance," she replied smoothly. Marcus explained the situation. "Your daughter is dying, and you're hesitating to save her life." The way she said hesitating made it sound like a character flaw. The other woman introduced herself as Mrs. Patricia Hughes, a family counselor. The man was Deacon Robert Thompson from Marcus's church, brought in to add moral pressure. "Dorothy, Deacon Thompson," said in that deep voice preachers use when they want you to feel guilty, "the Bible teaches us about sacrifice. Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. How much more for a mother and her child?" Using scripture to manipulate me into surgery. That was a new low. Mrs. Williams had made herself comfortable on my best chair, the one I'd saved 6 months to buy from the thrift store. She was looking around my house with barely concealed disgust. "Dorothy, let's be practical," she said. "You're 62 years old. Jasmine is 28. She has her whole life ahead of her. You've already lived your life." The coldness in her voice took my breath away. Already lived my life. Like I was some used-up thing that had outlived its purpose. "I'm not dead yet," I managed to say. "Of course not," Dr. Mitchell interjected smoothly. "But we need to consider quality versus quantity. Jasmine could live 50 years with your kidney. You might live 15 years without it. Mathematically, donating saves more life years." Mathematically. They were talking about my life like I was an entry in a spreadsheet. Mr. Williams pulled out a leather portfolio and spread papers on my coffee table. Insurance forms, surgical consent documents, power of attorney papers. "We've handled all the paperwork," he said. "All you need to do is sign. The surgery is scheduled for Monday morning." "Monday? That's in 4 days." "The surgical team had a cancellation," Mrs. Williams said. "It's perfect timing, providential even. For the next 2 hours they took turns working on me like a pack of well-dressed wolves." Dr. Mitchell talked about family dynamics and healthy sacrifice patterns. Mrs. Hughes discussed generational responsibility and maternal instincts. Deacon Thompson quoted Bible verses about laying down your life for others. But Marcus's parents delivered the killing blow. "Dorothy," Mrs. Williams said, leaning forward with fake sympathy, "think about what people will say if you refuse. Think about how the community will react when they learn you let your own daughter die because you were too selfish to help her." "The church already knows about Jasmine's condition," Mr. Williams added. "Everyone's praying for a miracle. They're expecting you to be that miracle. The community pressure, the church pressure, the weight of an entire congregation's expectations pressing down on my shoulders. What if something goes wrong with the surgery?" I asked desperately. "Modern kidney donation is very safe," Dr. Mitchell said dismissively. "Less than a 1% mortality rate." Less than 1%. She said it like my life was a statistic. That's when little Tyrell came through my back door, home from school with his backpack dragging behind him. He took one look at all the adults in my living room and his eyes went wide. "Grandma Dorothy, why are there so many people here?" Before I could answer, Mrs. Williams spoke up. "We're helping your grandmother make an important decision about saving your Aunt Jasmine's life." Tyrell looked at me, then at all the papers on my coffee table, then back at me. I could see his little mind working. "Grandma, are they trying to make you do something you don't want to do?" The room went silent, out of the mouths of babes. "Of course not, sweetheart," Dr. Mitchell said in that fake sweet voice adults use with children. "We're just having a grown-up conversation." But Tyrell wasn't buying it. He walked over and took my hand. "Grandma, remember what you taught me about bullies? How sometimes they try to make you think you have to do what they want?" The adults exchanged uncomfortable looks. An 8-year-old had just called them out for what they were bullies in expensive clothes. "Tyrell, why don't you go play in your room?" Marcus's mother suggested sharply. "This is my grandma's house," Tyrell replied with innocent directness. "And my grandma looks scared." He was right. I was scared. Scared of the surgery, scared of dying, scared of saying no, scared of saying yes. But mostly, I was scared of these people who had invaded my home and were trying to pressure me into a decision that could end my life. "I need more time," I said finally. "There is no more time," Mr. Williams snapped, his polite mask slipping. "Every day you delay, Jasmine gets sicker. If she dies because you were too selfish to help her, that blood will be on your hands." Blood on my hands. The guilt trip to end all guilt trips. But as I looked at Terrell's worried face, at his small hand holding mine, I realized something important. These people didn't care about me. They didn't care about my fears, my health, my life. I was just a means to an end, a source of spare parts for their plans. "I want everyone out of my house," I said quietly. "Dorothy." "Be reasonable," Mrs. Williams started. "Out," I said louder. "All of you. Now." They gathered their papers and their disapproval, muttering about ungrateful mothers and family obligations. As they reached the door, Deacon Thompson turned back. "Dorothy, I'll be praying for your heart to soften, for your daughter's sake." After they left, I sat on my couch with Terrell beside me, both of us staring at the papers scattered on my coffee table. "Grandma," Tyrell said softly, "you don't have to do anything that makes you feel scared." "I know, baby. But sometimes grown-ups make things complicated. Uncle Marcus and his family aren't very nice, are they?" I looked down at my grandson, at his innocent face and worried eyes, and realized he'd seen something in 5 minutes that I'd been trying to ignore for months. "No, baby. They're not very nice at all." That night I called Kevin and told him about the Williams family invasion. "Mama, they brought reinforcements?" he said, anger clear in his voice. "Professional reinforcements. A doctor, a counselor, a preacher. They had it all planned out." "That's not support, Mama. That's manipulation. They're trying to overwhelm you into saying yes." "I know. But Kevin, what if they're right? What if I'm being selfish?" "Mama, wanting to live isn't selfish. And after what I found about Marcus, you'd be crazy to trust him with a kidney donation." I knew Kevin was right. But the weight of their expectations, the pressure from the community, the fear that my daughter might die, it was crushing me. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, knowing that Monday was coming, whether I was ready or not. Friday morning came with Kevin banging on my door at 6 a.m., looking like he hadn't slept all night. His investigator's toolkit was slung over his shoulder, and his laptop bag was packed tight with cables and hard drives I didn't recognize. "Mama, we're going to war," he said, kissing my cheek and setting up what looked like a mobile command center on my kitchen table. That Williams family made their biggest mistake yesterday. They showed their hand. I poured coffee while Kevin plugged in devices and opened multiple browser windows. The man worked like he was defusing a bomb, which, in a way, he was. "Tell me what you found," I said. Kevin pulled up a file on his screen that made my blood run cold. "Marcus Williams isn't just a disgraced pharmacist, Mama. He's a predator with a system." The first document was a police report from Birmingham, Alabama, dated 5 years ago. A woman named Sandra Johnson had filed a complaint against Marcus for administering unknown substances without consent. The case was dropped due to insufficient evidence. "That's victim number 1, Kevin said grimly. Sandra was 24, healthy as a horse, working as a dance instructor. She started dating Marcus, and within 6 months, she was having kidney problems. He convinced her to move in with him so he could monitor her condition. I felt sick. What happened to her? She got smart and ran, moved back in with her parents, stopped taking his vitamins, and got better within a month. But not before he'd collected blood samples, urine samples, and detailed medical data on her condition." Kevin clicked to the next file. "Victim number 2, Maria Gonzalez, Houston, Texas. Same pattern. Healthy 6-year-old nurse. Ironic, right? Started dating Marcus 2 years ago. Kidney problems appeared after 4 months of his supplements. She filed a restraining order but couldn't prove he was poisoning her. The pictures of these women look like Jasmine in her worst moments, pale, thin, exhausted. There's more, Mama. I found Marcus's real medical records. He wasn't just suspended from Grady Hospital. He was running unauthorized drug trials on kidney dialysis patients, taking payment from a pharmaceutical company in China to test experimental medications. Kevin's voice got harder. The FDA was building a case against him, but Marcus destroyed most of the evidence and fled to Atlanta. That's when he found Jasmine. I gripped my coffee cup so tight I thought it might shatter. He's been planning this for years. Worse than that, I found financial records showing he's been getting payments of $50,000 per successful case study. Mama, you're not just a kidney donor to him, you're a payday. Kevin opened another file, bank statements, showing large deposits into accounts under Marcus's mother's name. Mrs. Williams wasn't just an enabler, she was a financial partner in her son's crimes. The pharmaceutical company wants data on kidney transplants in African American women over 60, Kevin continued. Something about genetic markers and drug absorption rates. Marcus promised them a perfect case study, you donating to Jasmine. I thought about the way Marcus had looked at me when he said I was a perfect match. Not medically perfect, financially perfect. Kevin, what about the other women? Are they okay now? Sandra and Maria recovered completely once they stopped taking his drugs. But there's a third woman, Mama, Christina Williams, no relation to Marcus's family. She wasn't as lucky. Kevin's voice dropped to almost a whisper. She died during surgery. Marcus had convinced her elderly father to donate a kidney. The operation went wrong, and both Christina and her father died on the table. That's when the FBI started investigating. The room went silent except for the humming of Kevin's laptop, 2 people dead because of Marcus Williams, and I was supposed to be next. Where is he now? Marcus, I mean. Is he even legally allowed to practice medicine? His pharmacy license is suspended in 3 states. He's operating under a fake certification here in Georgia. The medical board doesn't know he's here. Kevin pulled up one more document that made me gasp. It was Jasmine's real medical records, not the fake ones Marcus had been showing us. Mama, Jasmine isn't dying. Her kidney function is at 85%, which is normal for someone her age. She's been taking drugs that temporarily suppress kidney function, making her appear sick during testing, but she's not in any real danger. I stared at the numbers on the screen. Normal kidney function, normal blood pressure, normal everything. She's not sick, I whispered. She's not sick, Kevin confirmed. She's been drugged to appear sick. And the worst part? I think she knows. That hit me like a physical blow. What do you mean? Kevin pulled up text messages he'd somehow recovered from Jasmine's phone. Messages between her and Marcus that made my heart break all over again. She's been helping him, Mama. The messages show her asking about the next dose and when to stop taking the pills before the next test. She's been faking symptoms. I read the messages with growing horror. My daughter, my baby girl, had been part of a plan to trick me into giving up my kidney for money. How long have they been planning this? Based on the messages? About 8 months. Right around the time Marcus got fired from Grady. I stood up from the table, walked to my kitchen window, and looked out at the house across the street, the house I'd helped them buy with my retirement savings. The house where my daughter was probably taking pills right now to fake her next episode. Kevin, I said quietly, I want them all arrested. Today. Mama, we need more evidence. Text messages and bank records aren't enough for attempted murder charges. We need to catch them in the act. What do you mean? Kevin's eyes had that cold look he got when he was planning something dangerous. We need to record Marcus giving Jasmine the drugs. We need him on video explaining the plan. And we need to document the pharmaceutical payments. How do we do that? We're going to give them exactly what they want. You're going to agree to the surgery. I felt the world tilt. Kevin, no. Not really, Mama. But we're going to make them think you've agreed. Get them comfortable. Let them think they've won. And then we're going to record every detail of their plan. Kevin started packing up his equipment. I'm going to plant surveillance devices in their house tonight, audio and video recording everything. By Sunday night, we'll have enough evidence to put Marcus Williams away for life. What if they find the cameras? They won't. I've been doing this for 15 years, Mama. These people think they're smarter than everyone else, but they're about to learn that Dorothy Washington's family doesn't go down without a fight. As Kevin loaded his car with spy equipment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not just hope that I'd survive, but hope that Marcus Williams would finally pay for what he'd done to all those women. Kevin, I called as he drove away. Be careful. These people have already killed twice. Don't worry, Mama, he called back. After tomorrow, they'll never hurt anyone again. I spent the rest of that day calling Marcus to tell him I'd made my decision. I was ready to donate my kidney to save Jasmine's life. The lie tasted bitter in my mouth, but it was a lie that was going to save lives. Saturday afternoon, while Kevin was installing surveillance equipment in Marcus and Jasmine's house, little Tyrell was conducting his own investigation in my backyard. I found him crouched behind my garden shed with his detective notebook, a pair of binoculars I'd bought him for Christmas, and an old cassette recorder that probably belonged in a museum. "What you doing back there, baby?" I asked. Tyrell looked up with the serious expression of a child who'd discovered something important. "Grandma Dorothy, I've been watching Uncle Marcus's house, and I think he's been lying about everything." I sat down on an overturned flower pot beside him. "What did you see?" Tyrell opened his notebook to a page filled with careful 8-year-old handwriting and crude drawings. Every morning at 7:30, Uncle Marcus comes out to his car and gets a black bag from the trunk. Then he goes back inside for exactly 15 minutes. Then he comes back out and puts the bag back. "That's very observant, honey." "But here's the weird part," Tyrell continued, flipping the page. "Yesterday I saw Aunt Jasmine walking to the mailbox. She was walking normal, not sick at all, but when Uncle Marcus came outside, she started walking slow and acting tired." My heart skipped a beat. "You saw her acting differently when Marcus wasn't around?" "Uh-huh. And I recorded it." Tyrell held up the old cassette recorder with pride. "I've been recording things all week. Listen to this." He pressed play, and I heard Marcus's voice coming through the small speaker. "Take 2 of the blue pills now, and 1 red pill before your mother gets here. Remember to act weak and dizzy." Then Jasmine's voice. "What if she doesn't agree to the surgery?" "She will. We've got her cornered. The church pressure, my parents, the medical bills, she can't say no now." I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. Hearing my daughter's voice plotting against me was worse than any physical pain. "There's more," Tyrell said, fast-forwarding the tape. "This was yesterday morning." Marcus's voice again. "The surgery is Monday. After that, we'll have enough money to disappear for a while. Let the investigation blow over." "What about Dorothy?" Jasmine asked. "What about her? She'll be lucky to survive the surgery with the complications I'm planning." I grabbed the recorder from Tyrell's hands, my own hands shaking. "Complications he's planning?" Tyrell nodded gravely. "Grandma, I think Uncle Marcus wants to hurt you really bad." That's when Kevin's car pulled into my driveway. He got out looking exhausted but triumphant, carrying a laptop and a bag of what looked like electronic equipment. "Mama, you need to see this," he called, walking toward us. I met him at my back door with Tyrell trailing behind, still clutching his notebook and recorder. "Kevin, Tyrell's been doing his own investigation," I said. "Play him the tape, baby." Tyrell rewound the cassette and played the recordings for Kevin, whose face went from tired to furious in about 10 seconds. "That little boy just solved half our case," Kevin said, ruffling Tyrell's hair. "Son, you're a natural detective." "What did you find in their house?" I asked. Kevin opened his laptop and showed me grainy video footage from inside Marcus and Jasmine's living room. I placed cameras in 4 rooms and audio devices in 6 locations. What I found is going to put them both in prison for a very long time. The first video showed Marcus mixing pills in what looked like a pharmacy setup in their basement. He was wearing gloves and a mask, carefully measuring powders and filling capsules. "Those are the kidney suppressant drugs," Kevin explained. "He's making them right there in the basement." The next video showed Jasmine practicing symptoms in front of a mirror, pretending to be dizzy, acting out weakness, rehearsing lines about pain levels. "She's been faking it all," I whispered. "Gets worse, Mama. Watch this." Kevin played audio from their bedroom late Friday night. Marcus's voice was clear. "After the surgery, we'll need to make sure Dorothy doesn't survive the recovery. A post-operative infection would be easy to arrange." Jasmine's voice. "You really think that's necessary?" "She's seen too much. Asked too many questions. Besides, the insurance payout is bigger if she dies within 6 months of the surgery." I felt Tyrell's small hand slip into mine. Even at 8 years old, he understood that these people were planning to kill his grandmother. "Kevin, how much evidence do we have now?" Between Tyrell's recordings, my surveillance footage, and the financial records I found, we have enough to put Marcus away for attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and practicing medicine without a license. Jasmine will probably get conspiracy charges too. "When do we call the police?" "Tomorrow morning. I want 1 more night of surveillance to make sure we have everything documented." That evening we sat around my kitchen table, me, Kevin, and Tyrell, going through all the evidence like we were preparing for war, because that's exactly what we were doing. Tyrell had filled 3 notebooks with observations, times, dates, and details that would make a professional detective proud. Kevin had hours of video and audio recordings. And I had the medical records proving Jasmine wasn't actually sick. "Grandma," Tyrell said as we finished organizing everything. "Are you scared about tomorrow?" "No, baby. For the first time in months, I'm not scared. Because now I know the truth, and the truth is going to protect us." But that night, as I lay in bed listening to the sounds of my neighborhood, I couldn't stop thinking about Jasmine. My daughter, who I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for, had been planning to let me die for money. The betrayal hurt worse than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. But it also made me stronger. Because now I knew exactly who I was fighting, and why I had to win. Monday morning was coming, and Marcus Williams had no idea that Dorothy Washington was ready for battle. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, like the sky knew what was supposed to happen and disapproved. I woke up at 4 a.m., not because of an alarm, but because my body knew this was the day I was supposed to die. The irony wasn't lost on me. Today, Marcus Williams thought he was going to cut me open and harvest my kidney for his illegal drug trials. What he didn't know was that Kevin had already called the FBI, and federal agents were positioned around the hospital waiting for my signal. I dressed carefully in my best church clothes, a navy blue dress I'd worn to my mother's funeral 10 years ago. If I was going to face down the devil, I was going to look respectable doing it. Kevin arrived at 5 a.m. with Tyrell in tow. The boy was carrying his detective notebook and that old cassette recorder, ready to document whatever happened. "Mama, you sure you want to go through with this?" Kevin asked for the 10th time. "Baby, we've got them dead to rights, but we need Marcus to confess on camera. The only way he'll feel safe enough to tell the truth is if he thinks he's won." The plan was simple but dangerous. I'd go to the hospital, let them prep me for surgery, and wait for Marcus to visit me in pre-op. Kevin would be hiding in the bathroom with recording equipment, and Tyrell would be my emotional support in case things went sideways. We drove to Grady Hospital in Kevin's car, passing Marcus and Jasmine's house on the way. Their lights were on, and I could see figures moving around inside, probably celebrating their upcoming payday. At the hospital, the intake process felt surreal. Nurses who thought they were helping me prepare for a life-saving surgery, while I knew they were unknowingly assisting in an attempted murder plot. "Mrs. Washington," said the pre-op nurse, a kind woman named Sarah who reminded me of myself at that age, "your daughter is already here. She wanted to see you before the surgery." Jasmine walked into my pre-op room looking perfectly healthy, no pale skin, no weakness, no symptoms at all. She'd obviously stopped taking Marcus's drugs to avoid any complications that might interfere with their plan. "Mama," she said, and for a moment I heard the little girl I'd raised. "I'm so grateful you're doing this for me." The words cut deep because part of me still wanted to believe my daughter loved me, that this was all Marcus's idea, that Jasmine was somehow an innocent victim too. But then I remembered the recordings, her voice discussing my planned post-operative complications, her voice asking about insurance payouts. "I love you, baby girl," I said, and meant it. Even knowing what she'd done, she was still my daughter. Jasmine started crying real tears that made me wonder if some part of her regretted what they were doing. But it was too late for regret now. Dr. Coleman arrived to do the final pre-surgical consultation. She looked confused as she reviewed my paperwork. "Mrs. Washington, I have to say, this is unusual. Normally, we require extensive counseling and waiting periods for living kidney donations, especially from donors over 60. "Dr. Coleman, my daughter is dying," I said, playing my part. "What's unusual about a mother wanting to save her child?" "Nothing, of course. It's just that the timeline seems rushed, and some of these medical records—" She frowned at Marcus's fake documents. "Well, never mind. You've made your decision." That's when Marcus appeared, dressed in surgical scrubs like he was part of the medical team. The audacity of this man never ceased to amaze me. "Dr. Coleman, thank you for accommodating our emergency scheduling," he said smoothly. "As Mrs. Washington's son-in-law and a medical professional, I'll be observing the surgery to ensure everything goes perfectly." Dr. Coleman looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Williams, you're not credentialed to observe surgery at this hospital." "Oh, I have special permission," Marcus said, pulling out forged documents that probably cost him plenty on the black market. "The hospital administration approved my request given the family circumstances." I saw Kevin signal from the bathroom door that he was recording everything. Marcus was digging his own grave with every lie. "Mrs. Washington," Marcus said, turning to me with that fake smile I'd learned to hate, "I want you to know how much this means to our family. Your sacrifice will not only save Jasmine's life, but contribute to important medical research. What kind of research? I asked innocently. Marcus glanced around to make sure we were alone, then leaned closer. Well, since you're family, I can tell you. Your kidney will be part of a breakthrough study on organ compatibility in African American women. The pharmaceutical company I'm working with has been waiting for the perfect case study. Case study? Your age, ethnicity, and kidney function make you an ideal research subject. After the transplant, we'll be monitoring both you and Jasmine for complications. The way he said complications made my skin crawl. I knew from the recordings that these complications weren't accidental. What if something goes wrong during surgery? I asked. Marcus's smile got wider. Mrs. Washington, in medical research, sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. Your contribution will help save thousands of lives in the future. Kevin stepped out of the bathroom at that moment, his phone clearly recording. Marcus Williams, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. The color drained from Marcus's face as FBI agents flooded into the room. They'd been listening through Kevin's wire, and Marcus had just confessed to planning my murder on federal recording equipment. This is ridiculous, Marcus sputtered. I'm a medical professional trying to save a woman's life. You're a disgraced pharmacist running illegal drug trials, said Agent Lisa Martinez, showing her badge. And you just confessed to planning to kill Mrs. Washington for research purposes. Jasmine had gone pale and was backing toward the door, but Agent Martinez blocked her path. Jasmine Williams, you're also under arrest for conspiracy and fraud. Mama, I'm sorry, Jasmine cried as they handcuffed her. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Marcus said you wouldn't get hurt. Baby girl, I said sadly, you were never supposed to happen like this. As they led Marcus and Jasmine away, Dr. Coleman stared at me in shock. Mrs. Washington, are you telling me this entire surgery was a setup? Dr. Coleman, that man was planning to kill me on your operating table and claim it was a surgical complication. My real daughter isn't sick. She's been taking drugs to fake kidney disease. Doctor. Coleman sat down heavily in the nearest chair. In 30 years of medicine, I've never seen anything like this. Little Tyrell, who'd been quiet through the whole arrest, walked over to me and took my hand. Grandma Dorothy, you're the bravest person I know. No, baby, I said, hugging him tight. You are. You saved my life with that detective work. As we walked out of the hospital together, me, Kevin, and Tyrell, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, and free from people who wanted to use my love against me. The surgery was over before it began, and Dorothy Washington was going home alive. But that's not how it really happened. Let me tell you the truth about that Monday morning, the real truth that scared me more than any nightmare. The plan went wrong from the very beginning. Kevin never made it to the hospital. At 5 a.m., while he was loading surveillance equipment into his car, Marcus's father and two men I'd never seen before grabbed him in my driveway. I watched from my kitchen window as they forced him into a black SUV and drove away. My phone rang immediately. Marcus's voice was cold and threatening. Mrs. Washington, your son is safe for now. But if you want to see him alive again, you'll come to the hospital alone and go through with the surgery. No police, no recording devices, no tricks. I was trapped. If I called the FBI, Marcus's people might kill Kevin. If I went to the hospital, Marcus would kill me. Either way, my family was destroyed. That's when 8-year-old Tyrell saved all our lives. I was sitting at my kitchen table, crying and trying to figure out what to do, when Tyrell appeared beside me with his backpack and that determined look he got when he'd made up his mind about something. Grandma Dorothy, I know where Daddy Kevin is. What do you mean, baby? I've been tracking Uncle Marcus's car with the GPS app on Daddy's phone. They took him to the warehouse on Industrial Boulevard, the one where Uncle Marcus keeps his drug-making stuff. I stared at my 8-year-old grandson, realizing he'd been conducting a more sophisticated investigation than any adult I knew. Tyrell, how do you know about the warehouse? I followed Uncle Marcus there last week when I was supposed to be at day camp. He's got a whole laboratory set up, and there are other sick people there too. Other victims. Marcus had been running his drug trials on multiple people, and now Kevin was probably locked up with them. Baby, we have to call the police. We can't, Grandma. I heard Uncle Marcus on the phone this morning. He said if any police show up anywhere, the warehouse people will hurt everyone inside. I felt my world collapsing. Marcus had thought of everything, planned for every contingency except one, an 8-year-old boy who was smarter than all the adults around him. "What do we do, Tyrell?" "We're going to save Daddy and stop Uncle Marcus ourselves," he said with the confidence only children possess. "But first, you have to go to the hospital and pretend everything is normal." "Tyrell, I can't do that. Marcus is going to try to kill me during surgery." "Not if I get there first." My grandson pulled out a cell phone I'd never seen before. Apparently, he'd been carrying multiple devices for his investigation. "Grandma, I've been recording everything for weeks. I have videos of Uncle Marcus making drugs. I have recordings of him talking to the pharmaceutical company, and I have proof that Aunt Jasmine has been faking being sick." He showed me video after video on the phone: Marcus in the warehouse mixing chemicals, Jasmine practicing symptoms, phone calls discussing my planned complications, even footage of other victims being forced to take experimental drugs. "How did you get all this?" "I'm small, and adults don't pay attention to kids. I can get into places and record things that grown-ups can't." Tyrell's plan was simple but dangerous. I would go to the hospital and let them prep me for surgery, buying time. Meanwhile, he would sneak into the hospital through service entrances he'd already scouted and hide recording equipment in the operating room. "When Uncle Marcus thinks he's safe and starts explaining his plan to the other doctors, I'll have everything on video," Tyrell explained. "Then I'll call the FBI from inside the hospital, and they can arrest him while saving Daddy at the same time." "Baby, this is too dangerous. You're just a little boy." "Grandma, I'm the only one Uncle Marcus isn't watching. I'm the only one who can stop him." Against every instinct I had as a grandmother, I agreed to Tyrell's plan. Because he was right. He was our only hope. I arrived at the hospital at 7 a.m. as scheduled, trying to act like a nervous but resigned mother about to sacrifice herself for her daughter. The medical staff treated me with the gentle kindness reserved for people making ultimate sacrifices. They prepped me for surgery, started IV lines, and wheeled me into the preoperative holding area. I kept watching the clock, knowing that somewhere in the building, my 8-year-old grandson was crawling through ventilation systems and service corridors like a tiny secret agent. Marcus appeared in his surgical scrubs, looking confident and victorious. "Mrs. Washington, I want to thank you for your cooperation. This surgery will save your daughter's life and contribute to medical breakthroughs that will help thousands of people." "I'm ready," I said, playing my part. They wheeled me into the operating room, where Dr. Coleman and her surgical team were preparing for what they thought was a routine kidney transplant. Marcus positioned himself at an observation station where he could watch everything and communicate with the pharmaceutical company sponsors. As the anesthesia team prepared to put me under, Marcus stepped closer to the surgical team. "Dr. Coleman, I want to remind you that this patient has some unique physiological markers that make this surgery particularly valuable for research purposes." "Research purposes?" Dr. Coleman looked confused. "This is a life-saving kidney transplant, not a research study." "Well, it's both, actually," Marcus said, pulling out documents I knew were forgeries. "The patient has consented to post-operative monitoring and potential complications for the advancement of medical science." That's when I heard a small voice from the ventilation grate above the operating room. "Dr. Coleman, don't listen to him. He's trying to kill my grandma." The entire surgical team looked up to see little Tyrell's face peering down from the ceiling vent, holding his phone and recording everything. "Security!" Marcus shouted, but it was too late. "Uncle Marcus has been poisoning Aunt Jasmine to make her look sick," Tyrell called down. "And he's planning to hurt Grandma Dorothy during surgery. I have videos of everything." Tyrell dropped his phone down to Dr. Coleman, who caught it and immediately started watching the recordings. Her face went from confusion to horror to rage in about 30 seconds. "Stop all surgical procedures immediately," she ordered. "This man is not authorized to be in this operating room." Marcus lunged for the phone, but hospital security had already been alerted by Tyrell's shouting. As they grabbed Marcus, he made one last desperate attempt to inject something into my IV line. That's when Tyrell did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. My 8-year-old grandson dropped down from the ceiling vent like a tiny action hero and landed right on Marcus's back, knocking the syringe from his hand. "You're not going to hurt my grandma," Tyrell shouted, clinging to Marcus like a little spider monkey. The operating room erupted in chaos. Security guards wrestled Marcus to the ground while he screamed about research contracts and medical breakthroughs. Dr. Coleman was calling hospital administration and the police simultaneously. And in the middle of it all, my brave little grandson stood beside my surgical table, making sure no one else tried to hurt me. "Grandma Dorothy," he said, taking my hand, "Daddy Kevin is safe." The FBI found the warehouse and arrested all the bad people. As they wheeled me out of that operating room alive and unharmed, I realized that an 8-year-old boy had just saved not only my life, but the lives of every other victim Marcus Williams had planned to hurt. Tyrell looked up at me with those bright, intelligent eyes and said, "Grandma, we won." And we had. Against all odds, the truth had defeated the lies, and Dorothy Washington was going home with her family intact. 3 months later, I was sitting on my front porch watching Tyrell play detective in the backyard when the news van pulled up. Channel 5 wanted to do a follow-up story on the kidney conspiracy, as they'd been calling it. The reporter, a young woman named Ashley Chen, set up her camera while neighbors gathered to watch. After months of feeling ashamed about my family's scandal, I was finally ready to tell the world what had really happened. "Mrs. Washington," Ashley began, "Marcus Williams was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison yesterday. How does that make you feel?" "Justice," I said simply, "for me, for Kevin, for all the other women he hurt, and for every person who might have been his next victim." The full scope of Marcus's operation had shocked even the FBI. The warehouse Tyrell discovered contained evidence of drug trials on over 30 people, mostly elderly patients and people with disabilities who Marcus had recruited through fake medical programs. He'd been paid over $2 million by the Chinese pharmaceutical company for data on organ compatibility and drug absorption rates in different ethnic populations. "What about your daughter Jasmine?" Ashley asked gently. That question still hurt. Jasmine had been sentenced to 5 years for conspiracy, but she'd cooperated with investigators and helped them understand how Marcus recruited and manipulated his victims. "My daughter was manipulated by a man who preyed on her insecurities," I said carefully. "She made terrible choices, but she's still my child. We're working on rebuilding our relationship." The truth was more complicated. Jasmine had been writing me letters from prison, and we'd started having monitored phone calls. She claimed Marcus had convinced her that I wouldn't actually be hurt, that the surgery would be performed safely, and I'd be fine. She said she never knew about the planned complications. I wanted to believe her. Part of me did believe her. But trust, once broken that completely, takes time to rebuild. "Tell us about Tyrell," Ashley said, smiling. "This 8-year-old boy became a national hero for exposing the conspiracy." I looked over at my grandson, who was now 9 and still carried his detective notebook everywhere. "Tyrell saved my life, but more importantly, he saved his father's life and prevented Marcus from hurting other people. This child has more courage and integrity than most adults." Tyrell had indeed become famous. The FBI had praised his investigative work, and he'd been invited to speak at schools about being observant and speaking up when something seems wrong. More importantly, his actions had led to the rescue of 12 other victims who were being held at Marcus's warehouse. "What's next for your family?" "Healing," I said. "Kevin's back to work as a private investigator, and he's been helping other families who've been victims of medical fraud. Tyrell is starting 4th grade and still wants to be a detective when he grows up. And me? I'm just grateful to be alive and surrounded by people who truly love me." After the interview, Kevin and Tyrell joined me on the porch. We'd all been through trauma counseling, and we were closer than ever. Kevin had started a nonprofit organization to help families identify medical fraud, and Tyrell was his youngest consultant. "Mama," Kevin said, "I have something to tell you." "What's that, baby?" "Dr. Coleman called today. The hospital wants to create a new protocol for verifying emergency organ donations. They're calling it the Dorothy Washington Safety Check." I felt tears in my eyes. Something good had come from all this pain. "And there's more," Tyrell added excitedly. "The FBI wants me to help train their agents about how kids can help solve crimes." That evening, as we sat around my kitchen table sharing dinner, really sharing it, not hiding secrets or plotting against each other, I thought about everything we'd been through. Marcus Williams was in prison for the rest of his life. His parents had been arrested as accomplices. The pharmaceutical company was facing international investigations. And 12 other victims were alive because an 8-year-old boy paid attention when adults didn't. "Grandma Dorothy," Tyrell said, looking up from his homework, "I have a question." "What's that, baby?" "Do you think Aunt Jasmine will ever come home?" It was the question I'd been dreading and hoping for at the same time. "I don't know, baby. She has to serve her time first, and then we'll see if she's really changed." "Do you want her to come home?" I looked at my grandson's innocent face, then at Kevin, who was watching me carefully. "I want the Jasmine I raised to come home. The daughter who used to help me in the garden and laugh at my jokes. But the person who helped Marcus try to hurt me? That person needs to prove she's gone forever." Tyrell nodded solemnly. like he understood more than any 9-year-old should have to. But you know what I'm sure of? I continued. This family is stronger now than we've ever been. We survived the worst thing that could happen to us, and we're still here, still loving each other, still fighting for what's right. Kevin reached over and squeezed my hand. Mama, you're the strongest woman I know. What you did letting yourself be bait to catch Marcus, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. No, I said, looking at Tyrell. What your son did was the bravest thing. Adults are supposed to protect children, not the other way around. But sometimes, Tyrell said with wisdom beyond his years, kids can see things adults can't. And sometimes, family means everyone protecting everyone. That night, after Kevin and Tyrell had gone home to their own house 3 blocks away, I sat on my porch looking at the house across the street where Marcus and Jasmine used to live. It was empty now, with a for sale sign in the yard that had been there for months. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart raced, old fears die hard, but it was just Dr. Coleman from the hospital. Mrs. Washington, thought you'd want to know we caught another attempted medical fraud today using the protocols we developed after your case. The Dorothy Washington safety check saved another family. Thank you for your courage. I smiled, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, pride. Not just in surviving, but in making sure other people would survive too. The next morning I woke up to find Tyrell in my backyard with his detective notebook, investigating what looked like evidence of a new mystery. Grandma Dorothy, I think Mrs. Peterson next door is being overcharged for her heart medication. The pharmacy is adding extra fees that don't make sense. I looked at my grandson, my little hero who'd saved my life, and couldn't stop himself from trying to save everyone else too. Well then, I said, putting my arm around his shoulders, I guess Dorothy Washington and her detective partner better get to work. Because that's what family does. We protect each other, we fight for justice. And when the world tries to break us, we prove that love is stronger than greed, truth is stronger than lies, and sometimes the smallest voices can make the biggest difference. And if you're watching this video today, because someone in your family is pressuring you to do something that doesn't feel right, remember this. Trust your instincts. Ask questions. And never let anyone make you feel guilty for wanting to protect yourself. Your life matters. Your safety matters. And family, real family, will always put your well-being above their wants. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that prove the truth always wins in the end. And tell me in the comments, have you ever had to stand up to family pressure? How did you find the courage to say no? Because every story like mine might save someone else's life, and that's worth more than all the money in the world. Did you like my story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.